No, I don't see it. Will I see it under video? Uh, okay.
Well, a very good evening to you all. Welcome to the live stream on Lunar Module 5's channel. I hope everybody's okay today. I see a few of you have joined us a little bit early. That's okay. We're gonna start in a few minutes' time. If you are here, there are 4 people at the moment viewing. Would you like to say hello? It would be nice to know who's there, as we can't see it on the obs version that we have. But you're very welcome along. And tonight we do have live from some, I don't know, 3,000 to 7,000 miles away. It depends. He'll have to tell us. Brian McInall, who's going to be talking about some of his work on Apollo 12. So he is live at the moment. I can hear him from time to time. So hopefully that feed is going to work. And obviously the stream you're looking at, the picture you're looking at the moment is a picture of the live stream logo. Let's have a good look at where we're at the moment. I'm going to show a short video as we talk to Brian. We'll introduce him in a second or so. And this video here is the work that's been done in the last few days. And you can see what I've been up to, and mostly putting in these slides and making them animate. I see Brian is there. There he is. I can see him. Mr. Nagent, hello. Tim, Happy New Year to you too. By the way, I have to say thank you to everybody on the community part of the channel who said Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Really appreciated that. That was lovely to see and to read. So thank you very much for those. And into 2020 we go, trying to finish Apollo 12 EVA-1, which we are going to. Let me just start this video so we can see on the screen what's going on, and then I can move off the screen here. And we can say a very good evening, hopefully, to Brian McInall. Good evening, Brian. How are you?
Yes, hello everyone. It's good to be here. I'm not sure if you can hear me very well. I can't hear myself through the live feed. So is this good for you, Simon?
Yeah, it's coming through for me. Everybody, could everybody on the text just say they can hear Brian? Okay. So just say a few more words, Brian, and let's see if they can.
Okay. Yes, it's good to be here, and Happy New Year to everyone who's watching today.
Please, somebody tell me that you can hear him. Dun, 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 dun. Watching it work. Good. 5x5. Oh. Hey, we've got a 5x5 there, Brian. That means that we're probably okay.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
I'd go with a 3x3 myself. I'd be quite happy. Okay. So really appreciate Brian coming along. Thank you, mate. It's really, really good. First time we've actually talked.
That's right. Today was the first.
We've been texting and emailing and messaging and everything else, and for the last few weeks. And so we're going to ask Brian some questions. And if you have questions on the chat, please ask away as we go. So the first thing is obvious. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Brian. Anything you want to share with us?
Well, I guess I've been interested in this stuff for as long as I can remember. And I first got involved with the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal. I'm sure many of you have seen that, just through interest. And I happened to have a large collection at the time. And I worked for a company that sold scanners and photocopiers. And so I was in a position to digitize a lot of this stuff for Eric Jones and those folks. And so reached out to him, and we hit it off and just got more and more involved in this. And it was sometime after the LRO was launched in 2009 that I had wanted to try to make detailed maps of the surface operations, but nothing really existed up to that point in terms of photo background. But once they launched that satellite and got it into its low orbit, we got some spectacular pictures back. And it was from there that I started working on this stuff. So I already have a lot of this map stuff created. And I was thinking after this stream to drop my email for those who are interested to see some of this material. And so, because this material was created, and Simon was making this video, and due to the fact that the TV camera goes offline, I thought it might be an opportunity for him to tap into this material to make his videos.
Yeah,
And
and we
here I am.
we just for info, we started off with on the because we've already done part of the EVA. Brian
Mhm.
offered the pictures then, and we were working in 440 or 480 at that point, and really you couldn't see the pictures very well on the screen. We've really worked hard to, and Brian certainly worked hard to get the resolution right. Okay, great answer. When and why did you first get interested in space?
I have no idea. I was probably 3, 4 years old at the time of Apollo 11. And I think probably what it was is my older brother was getting toys and things like that from the space age. And it was just, at 4 or 5 years old as a small boy, rockets are a great thing. And it planted a seed that has continued to grow until this day.
Getting information from the BBC. Fantastic. Thank you, BBC. Thanks, Brian. So why did you decide to put together the maps for the Apollo missions? Because you've done some others as well.
Well, I'd always imagined that something like this must have already existed. Um, and as I came across more and more materials, such as preliminary science reports or the U.S. Geological Survey reports that they've done, or post-mission reports, certainly there are maps, but nothing down to the level that I suspected that might exist. I think the one exception would be the preliminary science report for Apollo 11, where there's a nice schematic type map showing where all the photographs are located and things like that. And that's kind of what I kind of imagined. And so when the LRO was launched and started producing these fantastic images, I realized that you can actually see in those images rocks and craters and things of that nature that also appear in the surface pictures that the crew took. And by matching those up, it became possible to determine exactly where each and every photograph is located. And so I just started playing around to see whether or not I could document, say, one particular station. Could I cover all the photographs and where all the samples were taken? And I could. It was quite easily done once I learned the process. And so I fed that back to the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal, and these guys loved it. And so I just started tackling one station at a time. And so all of Apollo 12, for example, has been done, and I've just kept going from there. I'm about 20, or I guess about 30, 32 maps into this project, and I figured it'll go up to about 60 or 70 by the time I'm done all the missions.
And how many slides have you done for Apollo 12 so far? Do you know?
For this video,
Yeah.
or in terms of just general maps?
No, for this particular video.
Oh gosh, 300.
Yeah, I would say so. It's like old time animation. It's like stop
Yeah,
start animation, isn't it? And
yeah,
yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the process that you go through? So take us through it stage by stage for the slides that you're doing for 12.
sure. The graphical effort's actually quite easy because it's really just a case of opening up a base map. Like once Simon and I got down to what we were trying to show, what the resolution worked, and the font size and stuff like that, then it's just a case of creating a base image, and then doing a save as for that image. And then when I save it, I just simply move the icons for Pete and L to the appropriate spot and repeat that process. So the actual mouse clicking, if you will, is really quite simple. The difficult part is trying to determine what it is that they're doing, where they're going, what they're each working on, when they're working together, and things like that. And of course, all we have at our fingertips is the transcript to hear what they're saying, but also the very detailed surface operation plans. So we know what their objective is. We know what the equipment is that they're trying to handle. And so when we go through the transcript, just trying to piece keywords that they're using and whatnot, and then come up with what I think is the right flow for what they're doing at any particular point in time, and then just updating the maps accordingly.
Turn the mic on. So we see
I,
on
yeah,
the picture on the screen here. This is the first ever slide, isn't it? This is the first one that we did, and it's a close-up shot of the lunar module. And this is the LRO shot, isn't it, from just zoomed in.
That's right.
Yeah, and then you're overlaying the pictures on. How did you get those pictures? Are they just self-made, or did you borrow them from somewhere? How did you do them?
They come from the LOR website. You can go into each mission and drill right down to the landing site. And what I do is um, I download those images, kind of in a tile format, assemble it together within Photoshop to get the whole landing site area. I then go through a process of zooming that image up to get to the right scale that I want, and then I go from there. I use different layers to for the nomenclature. The lunar module was scratch built um, within Photoshop, and yeah, just piece it all together.
Okay, so this last slide that we can see on the screen now is the slide as they move off to deploy the LSEP. This is Al Bean with the barbell and Pete ahead of himself. And tell me about the development that we did with Mini Al and Mini Pete, because that was great fun to do. That was
Yeah.
a revelation, wasn't it?
Yes, I think somewhere along the line you had mentioned it would be nice to see them move or to have some indication of what was going on. I guess what it was in my mind was that if we just went from photograph to photograph, there's going to be huge gaps where we're still missing what's going on.
Mm.
And so I just sat down one night and I thought, gee, how could I make these guys? All of the LSEP equipment, the antenna are all just scratch built from looking at some drawing to get a sense of scale. And so I just started doodling one night, and I thought, well, this actually looks pretty good. And I sent you a couple of test images to see what you thought, and yeah, it seems to have worked out really well.
Yeah, and this traverse that we've got, we showed the scale here. How did you work out the scales that you wanted for the photograph? Did you just decide it was going to be this one, or did you just think we needed to be in this close? We were talking about, just for people listening, we were talking about from the lunar module site, as they moved off, we wanted the scene to come out as if the camera was zooming out, so you could see where they were going. And then once they got to the LSEP site, like this picture, that they were zoomed in again. And here we are, just reaching the LSEP site. And if anybody doesn't know, the large mound at the bottom there, Peter's just taken some pictures of that and walked back up again. So, but how did you decide on the scale, Brian?
Well, the scale was already determined from the maps, and the way I did that was I used the maps that were prepared for the mission, which came with a grid already on it, so the scale was already given there, and I just calibrated it to the LRO image that I was using. So that's how the scale was determined. And the idea of putting it in here was I thought that when we're close in looking at the crew or they're around the lunar module, the scale's kind of obvious. We kind of have a general idea of how big the spacecraft is and of course how big they are. But once you get up to the LSEP area, all you have is these craters and rocks, and of course they exist of all sizes. There's nothing here to really give you a sense of what that scale is, and so that's when I thought it'd be nice to have some sense of context of what we're looking at. Once we get back into the LSEP area, then of course we'll have mini Pete and mini L to give us a sense of scale. So again, it's just trying to provide that extra level of detail so that you really understand what you're looking at.
And you can see by the picture that I put up on the screen, this is one of the original ones that you sent me, with all the pictures that were taken around about that time, starting with 6907 in the middle right there, and then moving round. And we both realised that there was too much information on here, that we needed to spread it out a little bit. You can't concentrate on this amount of information, and you need to see what's actually going on. And if you take out Pete and Al from this situation here, it just doesn't make any sense really what's going on. So I think we came to the right solution.
Yeah, because again, what we're showing here is a video, and so we can show things one step at a time.
Yeah.
This is obviously a crop from the map that I've done that shows all the photographs and things like that. And just while we're on this particular image, you'll notice that each photo has an arrow and has a dot at the end. And this is an example of the result of the triangulation process that I go through that I believe is probably accurate to within plus or minus 1 meter of looking for alignments between craters and rocks and really trying to understand exactly where the photographs were taken of. And that crop that was just shown part of a much larger map that I sent to Simon.
Yeah.
And like, I'll drop my link at the end of this, email wise. And those who are interested, if you want to email me, I'll certainly put you in touch with the rest of the maps I've got. I've got all of Apollo 12 done, 2/3 of Apollo 16 done, which is where I first started this project. And I'm just getting into Apollo 14 now. Um, and it'll give you a better idea of just what the maps are showing and why I thought it'd be a good thing for this video to make use of.
Yeah, the visualization, the amount of detail that you've got on the maps is fantastic, and I think if you have that in front of you and you can study it and you know what's going on and you're following along with the ALSJ, it's just a fantastic map to have a look at, and you get so much detail. I think also because of the LRO map, and most of us were so fascinated when the LRO maps came out, that the pictures came out, which showed the footprints, where the equipment was, and it kind of brings it all to life. So really, really well done, great work.
Thank you. Thank you. And just to give you another sense of the level of detail these things kind of show, you'll notice that some of the photo IDs are underlined, and that's to indicate who took the picture. So an underline or a stripe would be the commander, and a non-underline or non-stripe would be the LMP. So I guess just trying to really make it enriched with detail as possible. Um, it just makes a better product in the end.
What's doing the project this way with Apollo 12? What's it done differently in your brain? Because you're going into real detail. One of the things we said was about it being really accurate. We wanted it to be as accurate. When I did 11, the most important thing that the guys also, the other guys like Robin, Johan, we were all talking about, we want it to be as accurate as possible. So when you're watching it on screen, you're seeing basically what it should look like. Even if that's a simulation of the command module in lunar orbit, that's kind of the orientation it should be. How is that? How is that accuracy? Has that got your brain going a little bit? I know it has. I know what you're going to say, but I think I know
Yeah,
what you're going to say.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
you've really had to get down into the detail. We were talking just before you answer that. We were talking this afternoon about Pete trampsing down around
Mhm.
the central station, and we've got some slides, and I'll show you to everybody later, that show him trampsing around the central station, and it just makes you really think. There's the bit we were talking about. Please talk about it again, Brian, about the way that Pete goes to get the hammer and which way you thought and how you thought that through. Because I think that's just a brilliant story. But have you had to really delve down into your brain a little bit, because you've got to look at every single word that's said and try and
Yeah,
work out what exactly is going on and where they've gone to and which direction and which one of these footprints is the path that they're taking. A lot of
yeah,
questions there. Try and answer them.
yeah. It certainly has. For example, going back to the maps that I make, at the bottom of each of the maps is a timeline that indicates when certain things have happened. Because Simon, as you mentioned before, there's a lot of information on the map, and one of the things that's difficult is to know what happened when. So I've included a timeline at the bottom, and so in trying to get to that detail is one challenge to determine, for example, when they're deploying the LSEP, when a certain experiment's deployed. Now, in this video series, I'm having to go even deeper because, of course, the each experiment isn't deployed immediately. It takes time, and you have to undo the cable, and you got to draw it out and set it and level it. And sometimes, of course, things don't go as smoothly as was planned, and you're trying to decipher all of that information and figure out what they're doing. So, Simon, you mentioned the hammer. That's just a prime example. I always knew that Al had trouble getting that fuel element out of the cask to put in the RTG. And as I was going through the transcript, all of a sudden I realized, oh, they had to have this hammer, but it was over on the mesa, and Pete had to go get it. I never realized that had happened. And so once I did realize, it's like, well, now we've got to show that, right? So it's always a case for me where if it's possible to show some detail, then we should show it. If I can go deeper, we should go deeper. But at the same time, my overriding motto is let's get it right, whether it's the map or this video that we're trying to do. So so it's very challenging, but that's what makes it fun too, because you learn more about what really happened when you go through that process.
Level of
You know,
detail is quite astounding. I'll talk about that in a second. For those of you that have just joined us, Please say hello on chat. Say good evening to us. It's evening for me. It's afternoon for Brian, but it's definitely evening here. And please say hello. Also, if you have a question for Brian, please type it up into the box, and we'll ask him to answer it for you. So just going back into the level of detail, it's for me. It's been there's been a frustrating and there's been a joyous part to this, because the joyous part, let's go that first, is that we're getting detail we've never been able to see. We've always had to imagine what they were doing, and that was kind of hard, because you have to have a real appreciation of where they're at and the environment they're in, and you have to have a great imagination. Most of us do, but it's hard to do. Even with tiny Pete and Al, you start to get an appreciation about what this actually looked like, and I think that's the whole. For me, that's the joy in this. The frustration has been that it is a very slow process. It takes Brian a lot of work to get these done, and then it takes me a lot of work to put them in, as you're seeing on the screen at the moment. Each individual slide has to be put in, and I have to check the timeline to make sure that we've got the right slide in the right place. I'm hoping that by the end of it, we've got all the right slides in the right places. We were talking today about the length of video, and this is going to be 3.5 hours. It will end up around about 12 gigs of data, which is a heck of a lot. And when we do the sixth day, that will end up at 20-30 gigs, and it's a huge amount of data which we're putting in. This, which you're seeing on screen at the moment, is just from 22 minutes 12 to 24 minutes 48. You're seeing 2.5 minutes of the information that will be shown on the screen in those 2.5 minutes, and you can see it's a hell of a lot of information to put up there. So the joyous part is seeing the accuracy. The hard bit is knowing that we're saying we want to get this video out to everybody out here watching, and we do, and we will, but it has to be right. And this process that Brian's gone through and that I've gone through is vital to make sure we get this right. There's no point doing this half-cocked. We've got to do it right. And I think we owe that to the guys who flew this mission, to everybody else who was on this mission on the ground, to try and get it as right as possible. And the sad thing is, of course, we can't go and ask Alan, Pete, or Richard, is this how it really looked? Have we got this right? Because we could have just asked Pete, which way round did you go around the lunar module, and he would have told us if he remembered. So accuracy, but longevity. I apologise. It's taken longer than we thought, but we are working as hard as possible in the time that we have to get this right for you. You want to make any comments, Brian, on that?
Yeah, I just completely agree with what you just said, and I also wanted to add that as I make these maps and also participate in making this video, there's also a certain, I suppose, sense of responsibility, because as we add in this detail, the end product is so much better than what we've seen before, that in the future, this work takes on a certain legitimacy. People begin to rely on it as being accurate, being gospel, as it were. And so, if you're going to put in the detail, you want to make sure it's right. You don't want to misrepresent what actually happened. And so, there's a certain responsibility, I feel, in being involved in this.
Yeah, and I'm glad in a way that we don't have to do this for the whole of the flight, because it would take us years to do it. So it's just for the 2 EVAs. We've talked about Apollo 14, and we've talked about the others as well, and I'm sure those down the line. Again, we were talking this afternoon about how this will look in 50 years' time, and this will be, take a film from 50 years ago, from the 60s or the early 70s, and it kind of looks a bit dated now, and I'm sure that this within a few years will look a bit dated, but it starts to put a benchmark around what this should look like. And my hope is that one day you're able to put on a VR helmet and go into this mission and actually experience it as it was seen. Somebody is going to put that together one day. So this is, to me, this is like going back to the old silent movies. To me, this is the stage we're at. But we're trying as advanced as we can to make it look good, and to for people who are really interested in it, for history to say, well, that was good at the time. In 20 years' time it won't be, but it's worth it now, and it teaches people stuff. So that's important to me. I will say a quick hello to everybody as we're racing along, 25 minutes in. Who haven't we said? We said hello to Tim, 5x5, Mr. Agent. Yeah, we can. Brilliant. Yassine, I haven't even looked here tonight. Yassine, hi. Yassine, hi. How you doing? I've been looking at the screen. KS Racing, Happy New Year to you. Hello. Martin C, good evening, and Happy New Year to you. Hope you're still with us. Clifford Cherry, greetings to us both. Say hello to Clifford, Brian.
Hello, Clifford.
Now, I'm going to have trouble with this one. I saw it coming up, and I just thought I'll just call it Cap. Hello, Cap, because it just seemed easier. Good evening, and all the best wishes for 2020, and the same to you. Clifford, I'm sure that Brian can see. Can you see the comments okay, Brian?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So, Clifford, I appreciate your hard work on this. So that. This night is all about Brian. It's not about me specifically. But thank you very much. But a huge. I've said it to him tonight because the first time we really sort of chatted, voice, and just said, without you, this project just would not look as good as it does. So I think huge appreciation for what the effort that he's put in, and the content that he's put in, because it's very professional and it looks really good. So appreciate that. So there, a bit of kudos to you, sir. No apologies. Good. Hooray. No apologies. And Brian says hello to everybody. If you are here just on chat, just very quickly, just say hello to Steve. Good evening to you. Welcome along to this lovely chat that we're having with Brian all the way over there. Did we say where you work? I can't remember, Brian. I know it's on the ALSJ. Do you want to say where you are? You don't have to.
In terms of my location?
Geographics, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm in London, Canada.
Yeah, he's in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a time difference. It's only his afternoon. It's my evening. So for you guys in Australia, it's way out. I don't know what's going on. So we're a world view. But yeah, so a big thank you to Brian for turning up. I'm really enjoying myself. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. We've got some more questions. If you have a question on chat, please ask. And now's the time to ask either myself, but mainly for Brian, about the process. I will show you in a few minutes where we're at. You're seeing a video on screen of a screen video from the other day, which I put together when Brian produced 88 slides in a row, and then I had to spend part of my day putting those back in again, back into the timeline. So you're seeing that process up to a point. If you have a look at the top right, for instance, you can see that we're at the ALSEP site and we're on checklist 49. Okay, so Brian, what projects are you working alongside Apollo 12? What are you putting together at the moment?
Well, I was just starting to get into the EVA2 for Apollo 14, and was struggling how to get the entire theater of operations into one image in terms of the memory size I had, and so I just got that accomplished and was ready to start in on that EVA when you and I started communicating again. So I haven't had a chance to get back to it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's all fun. It's all good. I'll have to figure out a schedule once we get through more into January here, and get this EVA done so I can work on both projects at the same time. So, and that's pretty much it. That's takes up most of my interest in this. And I usually make a map about once every 2 months. It usually takes about that long to get through all the detail and get it right, and re-editing and whatnot. So it takes up all my time.
And I think that's one of the things that I wanted to say. We even today we've gone through corrections on ones that didn't quite work and aren't quite what we need. And every time I've said to Brian, we might want to slide slightly different to do this thing, and he's just come up with the goods every time. And I've put those in this afternoon, and they look really good. The corrections that we've done, and they're always tiny little things that you just don't realize. Like one of the, you can see in the top right here, where it's at sub palette, and it just might inadvertently have moved a little bit, a tiny bit, and we have to correct that because otherwise it looks like sub palette is the nomenclature is going everywhere across the screen. So appreciate those. So there's a question for you from KS. How long does it take you to produce one slide?
To produce one slide usually takes really minutes to do. Once I know exactly what it is that change has to be, moving each of the labeling, the arrows, the mini peak and mini L are separate layers within the image software, so I can control each one individually. So once I know where it's going next, which way it needs to point, then it's just a matter of doing it. So doing it is easy. It's only a couple minutes per slide, but it's all the research behind it that takes up more of the time. So, for example, just before this stream started, there's a couple of corrections that Simon alluded to that I fixed up that probably involved anywhere from 10 to 20 slides across the two of them. And within, I think, a 2 hour time span, is able to go in there, see what corrections Simon wanted me to make, and make them and produce those 20 slides. It's only minutes per slide once I know what change I need to make.
I think the biggest thing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this, which I'm going to show on screen now, top right, when we change from this view into this view, so we go from here, and then you can see it start to fade out into a new screen, and this is the new. I don't know if this is going to work. Oh, there we go. And so this is the transition, and how brilliant it. I mean, if you can see that, okay. If you're on a big screen, you can watch this. I love the way this the transition happens from right close up on the LM and the two guys walking here, and then we slowly get this merge, which we can do into the longer view, and then they start to walk up towards here, and then eventually we'll get to here, which is that long view changes to the longer view. We'll warn you that my power director keeps crashing when I do this because I've done it so often. So I like it. So there we go. There's the view again, and then we move into the even longer view, which is the final view, the high view that we get, which shows where they're going up to the Alcep site here, and then we've got them tagged here. I think that probably takes you the longest, does it not? Because you've got to visualize what that's going to look like, and then you've got to put all this stuff back in, and then you've got to take it back out again, and these have to be moved a little bit at a time. It's old-fashioned animation.
Yeah. And what makes it hard from my side is I don't see the end result until you happen to put up a stream or send me a screenshot. So I really have to imagine how it might look, and then wait for you to come back and criticize what I've done.
Oh, I, I wouldn't use the word criticize. It's more
No,
of a reflection.
no, either I'm doing it good or you're just very nice. Somewhere between the two is probably the truth.
Well, it's a reflection on, because I can. The thing for me is that I can see what this does as I do this. So it's a lot easier for me rather than seeing it the way you do. If you look at the screen, you can see it works perfectly. I mean, it's just a lovely animation. To get it into these screens, these are. Let's have a look at the duration. They're 3 seconds long, each one. They came out as 5 seconds long, and some of them are shorter, and it works really well. And sometimes it just doesn't. It just doesn't look the way that it should do. And we just need to change those things. I just think it works really nicely.
Yeah, Simon, you mentioned one challenge to me a few days ago, or sort of a few weeks ago. That is the fact that if there's pauses in the audio, they're not being represented here. Otherwise, you'd have a lot of dead air, and a file size is too large. So, if there's movement that's taking place and there's silence involved, and you're having to take it out, then that movement needs to happen a little faster than it actually did. It's hard for me to visualize it on my side because I'm using the transcript to determine what's going on, but I'm not listening to the audio, so I don't have a real good sense of how long it's taking for something to happen. I can see numerically, but I can't appreciate the actual play out of how it all flows, particularly when there's pauses. And so what I give Simon is just what I think it should take, and then allow him to go through and pull out or modify what he needs to do on his end. And somehow it looks great.
Yeah, I think that we'll just go through these this set here at the bottom here. They're all 3 seconds long, and on the timeline, they're all 3 seconds long. And the way that Brian did them was he worked out between there. That's the timeline between. Now, luckily, that audio is not cut in any way. It was left as it was because they kept talking. But there are long periods where they don't talk for maybe 30, 40 seconds. And what I do is on this video, because there's no video record, is I can cut that. And otherwise, original vision that I was thinking that you wouldn't be able to see anything. There'd be nothing on the screen to watch at all, apart from the picture that was last taken. Because we've done the EVA like this, because we've had a slide, sometimes it fits perfectly like this section, but others it doesn't. I think what we'll do for the second EVA, I'll send Brian the audio that we've done so that he has a reference point about how quickly these slides needs to change. And I think that will, for EVA 2, make it even better. Because at the moment, I'm not trying to squeeze them in, but you can see here on this set, these are 2 seconds long. They were 5 seconds long, and I think the originals were 3 seconds long. So I've cut audio of maybe 3 or 4 seconds there, but it does make a difference trying to get the right picture in the actual point. And the last point of that is that if you move these guys as they move across the lunar surface, if you start to move them in 2 second time to 4 second time, it looks as if they're moving twice as fast when they're doing 4 seconds. So it doesn't quite look right. And you're trying to get what 1/6 gravity would actually look like. And there's the point. Yeah, it's that accurate. KS came back, actually meant including the research. Can imagine that this is the most difficult part, but it's probably difficult to give an average value to that. So how long does it take you to do with the research, looking at the ALSJ, listening to the audio to get that right?
Yeah. Sorry, I misinterpreted his original question. Yeah, the research, it varies. For example, we're talking about when they're going from point A to point B. That's relatively simple because I can take a look at the time that it takes for that particular traverse and then divide by the number of slides we want and then just move them incrementally. But then even that can be tricky too because when they head out to the LSEP site, we know that Al rests for a little bit. So now I have to try and pick out from the transcript when he begins to move again, or else you're left with guessing. So it really depends on what part of the EV that we're showing, as to how much research there might be, particularly when they're moving equipment. They may not, they're not exactly saying what they're doing every second. They're working with each other so they can see what each other's doing, and so it can be very difficult to determine when they hand each other something what that is. And sometimes you don't really understand until you get a few minutes down the road and go, "Oh, they were handling this piece of equipment, the other one," and then you have to go back and undo what you did. So yeah, really, it's really a bit of a variable as to how long it takes per slide. It just depends on the context of what you're trying to cover. And I guess all I would add is that because we're trying to get it right, my approach is stop, slow down, review, make sure it's right, because you don't want to leave anything out. So it's it varies quite a bit.
And to add to that, you can see in this sequence up here that Alan stops here, and I can't remember why he stops. Is he looking to where they're going to go? Yeah, that's it, isn't he? He's looking to where they're going to go. And Pete just carries on. He can't see him. And he does just carry on.
Well, all he's carrying is a sub pellet at that point. And I think maybe Al was resting a little bit, but although he hadn't traveled so far, but he might have been changing his grip or who knows, right? But he does indicate when he starts to move again, thankfully. And so I know how long he was there. And that's why when Pete gets up to the site and takes his panorama, Al is still approaching because he had taken that moment to stop, and so he's significantly behind Pete.
And it's great when it comes together. I'll try and find it, but when when this sequence comes together, and Pete, takes his panorama of the Alcep site. Al is still catching up, and there he is with with the barbell. And when you start to see it like that, and you know that they've come up this hill, and you can see it on the right hand side here what they're doing, and look, they're where the cross is on the screen. That's where Al is, and that's where Pete is taking his pan, and there's the picture. That's how accurate we've got it, and it's just like when you see it come together like that, you think, "Oh, hallelujah! That's just brilliant. that's just a magic moment when I've seen that." I go, yes,
Yeah.
and I can't share it with anybody. I do, there's nobody to share it with except the wife and the dog, and then so I take a screenshot with my phone and send it to Brian. And say, there you go, look what happened. It's like you just want to share it and get it out there.
Yeah, and there's a good example of having to look ahead.
Yeah.
Like understand, okay, they're both heading out to this site, but you have to time it so that when Pete takes his pan, Al's just catching up. So I had to pace Al accordingly to make sure it all worked out. But you have to. The only way you can make these things work is by looking ahead and really having a good understanding of the EVA, and that just comes from years of interest in this topic.
Yeah. I'll play this bit here for you all. I'll zoom it up so you can see it. So you can watch the. So this is Pete here. You'll see it in a second. I don't need to explain to you. You know how it works. Here we go.
Okay. And alive. Oh, not too tight. That handle, when you carry this thing around at 1G, the alpha tends to hang down. When you carry it around up here at 160, and particularly the RTG tends to rotate the whole pallet. So you got one of them kind of halfway up in the air, the other one's down by your left leg, being afraid that the handle's going to come undone. Your handle doesn't lock. Okay. I have to almost... That's right.
There you go. That's what it looks like. Still think that's pretty cool. Okay. Thanks for the videos, Lum. Thanks, Carl. Appreciate the comment. KS, I hope that answered the question for you enough. He's outdoing himself there a little bit. It takes a little bit longer than a few seconds. I know it doesn't, but it does because it's about getting it right, and it's just the guy wants to get these things right, so it does take a little bit longer than that. And you know who? How are you? Happy New Year to you. You know who? Good to see you here. If you're still here, there's actually 22 people watching at the moment, which is, I think, a world record for this channel. So I should produce a cup or something. Pass it to myself. Okay, back to Brian to the questions. Anybody got any questions, please ask in the chat. We aren't going to be on very much longer, so if you do have a question, now is the time to ask. Brian, things lined up for the future. What have you got?
Well, I think it'll be more videos.
Okay.
Yeah, I look forward to completing this and moving into EVA2, and I suppose even with Apollo 14. I'm not sure. You've shared with me a little bit on your intended schedule.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, with Apollo 14, hopefully by that point in time, I'll be further down range with those maps. And even like Apollo 16, where they had a lot of TV footage and things like that. There's still an opportunity to do this kind of stuff, even for those well documented missions. So I'm going to be working on both going forward.
We got the just an aside there that he's going to be working on when we get to 16, when we get to 15. Of course, Brian can then drive a lunar rover, which would just be so much fun driving a lunar rover. And I think that those slides are going to have to be so close together to show the speed. We can't do it in a time lapse. I think we've got to work out a way of doing it. So we might need some animation lessons or something. But anyway, you're going to get to drive a lunar rover. Only the fourth person in the history of the world.
I never thought about it until you mentioned it to me in email, and I thought, wow, he's right. We got to figure this out. So I've actually got a couple ideas that
I'm riding shotgun. I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I'll go for the ride. It's going to be so
Well,
much
hang
fun.
on.
We've got to get
Just hang
14
on.
done first. We've got to get 12 done first. That's the major thing. I think, again, and I'll say it again, I've said it on the other live videos, once we get the EVAs done, it's a walk in the park, because it's and it sounds frivolous, but it's lunar liftoff, lunar rendezvous, TEI, home. And those things don't take as long to do. This is the important stuff. This is why they went. This is the moonwalk. This is what we should be showing, as crazy as it is, as accurately as possible. Somebody asked me the other day about Apollo 13, and was I going to do Apollo 13 because of it being 1970, 2020? And I'm not going to do Apollo 13. I'm helping with other projects with Apollo 13, but I know others are going to do 13. When I look back at 13 on the series and look at the low quality of the video, and I was using the simulator and it looks awful. It's kind of, though, at the time I was so proud of it. I'm still proud of it. It's Apollo 13. I was the first person to put that whole thing together. Great stuff. But now, if I think about 13, if I do it again, oh boy, is it going to be different. So, the accuracy and the wanting to do this, because people keep asking me, why do I do this? I'll ask Brian the same thing in a second. I'll answer my answer. Why do I do this? Because when I first became interested in spaceflight, I wanted the whole mission. I didn't care if it was hour 1 or hour 90. I wanted to listen and watch the whole thing, because there's such important parts of exploration, and I was interested in the subject. And I found a way to share that experience with other people. And if 50 people watch it, or 50 million watch it, I really don't care, as long as the person watching it is interested in the subject at the time. And I will caveat that with this comment, that Brian and I have spent the best part of 3 months, 4 months now. 4 months, must it be? He's probably asleep for the speech. Yes, there he is. So we've spent 4 months doing this. And I've spent the last, since Apollo 11, non-stop in my spare time, 2.5 years doing this. And then the question comes up, you only get 6,000 views per video, and people say there should be more, but you only get that many. Well, that's okay, because as long as those 6,000 got something out of it, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the time spent, because it's worth doing. Nobody else is doing it. Only other person doing it is Ben, and Ben's doing a fantastic job producing live feed of the flight director's loops and everything else. And I've said it before, that resource is just amazing. What an amazing resource. And I got asked once, that I got told that there was no room for what I do as opposed to what Ben does. And I just dismissed that and said, well, it's a different thing. If you want to watch the thing in real time, go and see Ben's site and enjoy yourself as I do. And if you want to watch it a little bit quicker than that, with all the information on it, with all the silencers out of the way, come and watch it. And it's free to you, and it's free from Ben. What great resources you guys have now that you never had. And that's the point why I do it. Now I'll throw it over to Brian. I'll shush. Why do you do it?
Yeah, pretty much the same reasons. I just found that there was so much more that could be done. Now I'm speaking in terms of the maps that I do. There's so much that could be documented. To pull it all together, I've been part of the Apollo Lunar Surface Tour for a little while as a contributor, and there's just so much incredible detail that's been put into that site, starting with Eric and all the contributors that have come along, and just saw a need for having maps, and the opportunity was there. Nobody was doing it, and I found that as I did it, the end result was incredible. It just took things to a new level, and for me personally, I find that I learn so much more when I do it. I don't just look at photographs anymore. I really look at them. I look for alignments and really try to understand what's going on. And so it's the same thing with doing this video now, and having to go to an even lower level of detail of understanding how these guys are moving, and it really puts you there. and fulfills an interest that I've always had. And like I said, the end product is just so much better for it, and it fills a niche that's never been filled before.
Yeah.
And others can use it and make reference to it, help them to understand what really happened, and so much the better.
Yeah. And I will echo those words all the way through. There are so many resources now that I use to do this, that people now use this to do what they're doing, and that's the important bit, that a piece of history is being kept the way it should be. We're not adding anything into this. If there was video for this EVA, Brian and I probably wouldn't be talking that much about the maps. We would probably be using them in a different way.
Yeah,
But we wouldn't be doing the level of detail that we are doing. Because we are, it's important to try and get those right.
exactly.
And that will be the legacy of it. If you have a look at Apollo 11 on the series on Apollo 11, and I know lots of you have watched it, there's a level of detail there that I could never have done with Apollo 13 unless I had the help. Because all I kept asking people like Robin was, what's the alignment here? How does the spacecraft align itself with the moon? I don't understand how to get this. What are they actually looking at? Which part of the moon are they sailing over? And although we didn't get it right all the time, we got it right 90% of the time, I think. And that's important for people just watching it. Just watching it. It's not so important for people who are just listening to it and enjoying it. It doesn't have to be wholly accurate, but for those aficionados of us who have grown up going, I really want this stuff, because this video and the rest of them is what I want in my collection. That's what I want. And I want to have a copy of it, and I want to reference it whenever I want to. And I can do now because the internet is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And has allowed us to do it. Now, Brian put up on the... Anything else you want to say on that, Brian? You're right.
No, agree with you 100%, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. He put up the... is that your email address?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
I just okayed that. And then, so there's Brian's email address if you want to email him.
Yeah.
If you have the interest in the maps. Do you want to say what you've given your email for?
Yep, just for that purpose. I have, because what's happening is once these maps are developed, eventually they are going on the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal website, but they're not all there yet. And I've got up to, I think, 32 maps so far. And so if there's interest out there to see them, by all means, shoot me an email. I'll put you on the list for future developments, and I'll catch you up with what's been done so far and answer any questions in regards to the maps. And as I always say to people who have viewed these, please let me know if there's something that's not correct or what have you, because the goal is to get it right. And I'm probably up to 20 or so folks that I'm in contact with now that have seen these, and I've had people from NASA contact me out of the blue and wanting to see more, and so it's becoming a bigger thing for me as more and more people see these. And if there's any interest, shoot me an email. We'll make contact, and I can brief you from there.
And we'll put the email address in the description of the video once it's up on YouTube in about an hour's time, if that's okay, Brian.
Sure.
Yeah,
it'll
come up with a live chat anyway, but just in case. Just going back to chat then, Martin. Pretty cool. Yeah, I'd say a pretty amazing. Well, I just lower my lower my plaudits now, just to allow you to say that it's pretty amazing. Nobody got that joke. Jeff, thanks for your hard work. Again, to everybody, it isn't just Brian either. There are people behind the scenes that Robin Wheeler is an absolute gem. And I've said to him, he's on hold at the moment. I've said to him, we're on the lunar surface. You're on hold, mate. I can't ask him any questions because we're not. When we lift off from the moon, that's where he comes in because he knows everything about every burn there ever was. So it's not just us. It's there's loads of other people behind the scenes who give advice and they help. Brian, thank you and great to see you here. One of the 6,000, fantastic. I'm not just saying the 6,000 because sometimes we get 120,000. So it's good stuff. Cap, same here. Thank you. Can you point me in the direction of Ben's site? Yeah, of course. If you just Google Apollo 11 in real time or Apollo, 17 in real time, you'll find the site. The Apollo 11 site is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and he did such a fantastic job on it. And I know that they're going to do future ones. So, okay, we're nearly at the end of the live stream. If anybody's got any questions they'd like to ask, now is the time to ask Brian while he's still here. I'm sure he'll come back at a later date when we get onto EVA 2, because we're going to finish EVA 1 pretty soon, aren't we, Brian?
We're going to try.
We're going to try. And when we do EVA 2, I'm sure, because there'll be changes that we'll make slightly to the format, we'll do another one. Would you like to do another one?
This is fun. Yes, my first one. So
it's my first one, trying to relay somebody's voice from Canada. Honestly, it's been interesting. Hasn't fallen out yet, which is brilliant. Great stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I've had
go on, say again.
I was going to say there's a few dropouts on this end, but not too many, not too long. So
it seemed to go okay this end. So I'm going to see when we see it back. Just for information, and just to say why I'm going to say this, there is a donation link at the bottom of this video. If you do want to donate to the channel, then please do. If you don't want to, absolutely fine. The thing I'm looking for the next sort of 12 months is to purchase a new PC. I've had this one for nearly 6 years now. With the donations that I got from Apollo 11, I upgraded everything in that case, which is just fantastic. But it's not quite where I want to be, and it allowed me to buy Power Director as well. If you would like to donate, I appreciate every donation. It all goes back into what we're doing, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for that. Brian, would you like to say anything finally?
No, just say thank you to you for allowing me to join today. It's been a lot of fun. I think we've come a long way. I think most of the time spent so far over the last 4 months was just learning what we're trying to do. And
we're becoming productive now. Yeah.
Well, but I think it's really gone a lot smoother than I would have hoped for. A lot of your suggestions are as if you're reading my mind. It's we're really much in sync with what we're trying to do here, and I think we'll get faster and faster as we go along, and provide even better content as more ideas come along.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun. Nice to see everybody here, and hopefully I'll come on again and we'll continue.
Yeah, fantastic. Big thank you to Brian. I'm sure that guys on chat, if you want to just say goodbye to Brian as he trundles off into Canada somewhere. Snowing there? Usually snowing in Canada.
No, we've had above 0 temperatures the last few days, and snow's all gone.
Well done, you. Raining here as usual. Yeah. So Brian, thanks very much. We'll chat in a second or so afterwards, and I'll just close off by saying thanks to everybody on the chat. Everybody who's going to watch this afterwards, it's a really good. We get nearly 700 to 1,000 people watching afterwards. Great to see that you enjoyed the streams as well. Please comment on the bottom of the screen, as it were. It would be nice to hear your comments. And we will be back soon with announcements on Apollo 12 and how far we've got. We're up to just to give you that update. We're up to the 36-minute point with the slides. That's not how far we are along with the whole thing. With the whole thing, we've finished, except for the slides. So we're up to the 36-minute point. We have an hour and a half of slides to put together. That isn't to say that we think that it's going to take another 4 months, because we're working really quite quickly now. We think that after LSEP deploy, it's going to move a lot quicker, because they're taking some pictures, obviously, when they go on the traverse, and then we'll slide down to the lunar module again. So we do think that it's going to take maybe a month or so to get these done. But I'm not going to absolutely say we're going to finish it by the end of January. We're going to finish it when we've finished it. But everything else is coming together nicely, and everything else is in the timeline. As you see, this is the last slide at the moment. LSEP deploy. We've just done the RTG, and we're coming onto the solar wind spectrometer and other deploy, and then we'll move off LSEP. But that isn't going to take us too long. So hopefully very soon you will have the whole of this for your collection. It's been a pleasure talking to Brian. Hopefully you've enjoyed yourselves, and we will say goodnight. And from the UK and from Canada,